sometimes when you get on a cruise ship, it does feel like it's an assisted living.
You're right. Certain cruises. Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Travel Alert, sponsored by Executive Travel. This week, Paul, we're doing the 2024 travel predictions for the year. This is the best one I've ever put together. I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and putting this together, I had so much fun, and I think everybody's going to really enjoy it.
Let's go.
All right. Number one in this week's Weekly Travel Alert, I got to brag first. Every year I put this together, and I have about a 72% success rate. And that means I throw a lot of stuff at the wall, and you guys can say, hey, I like that one or I don't like one. But these are what I have put together that I think is going to happen this year in hotels, air, credit cards, frequent flyer miles, all those things. We're going to get started. Here we go. Prediction number one in this week's Weekly Travel Alert reads, 2024 is the year of the upgrade as people want to travel and live their life with gusto. Paul, this is basically people they're moving from coach to first class. They're moving from 3-star hotels to 5-star hotels. They're moving up in their travel experience. They're going from the big crowds to the boutique. And so it's the year of the upgrade.
Well, I think this has been kind of what we've seen since COVID is people are recognizing the experience that they can get, and travel is a big experience opportunity. So if you're going to do it right.
You bet. Item number two on this week's Weekly Travel Alert on the 2024 predictions in the travel industry reads, Cool-cations is now top of mind when planning a vacation. Basically, cool vacations. You know, we had scorching hot heat in Southern Europe throughout a lot of the U.S., and people say, hey, I'm not going to travel in July and August anymore. And when I do travel, if I go those months, I'm going to go to those places in Scandinavia, the UK, Iceland, Canada. So the focus in 2024 is on cool-cations.
Yep, I think I must be ahead of the curve on this one,
Yes,
because I've been doing this for a long time. It's going the off season to those places that are going to be hot during the summer months, and if you're traveling during the summer months, go to the places like Scandinavia where you're not going to have that scorching heat. So this has been something, and the nice thing about that is if you're going in those off months, you're actually going to get some savings. Yeah. So that experience, and then going back to being able to upgrade and have that next level experience, it's much more affordable that way. So great idea, and I hope not everybody follows that, because I don't want my experience to be changed with that.
You bet. Prediction number three in this week's Weekly Travel Alert reads, here's what's hot for travel destinations in 2024, Paul. Tell me if you like these. Greece, Italy, Scandinavia, which is Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway, and even Iceland. I've got Ireland, the UK. I've got Dubai. How about Portugal, Japan, Istanbul, France for the Olympics, of course, Africa, safaris, Canada for cool, right? Alaska, river cruising, both European and American river cruising, and expedition cruising in the Galapagos in Antarctica. Those are my hot list. What do you think?
I think that's what we're seeing. I think those are the destinations people are looking at. A lot of those are new and different from what people have been doing. So I think that's another thing is people came out of the last couple years, they got out, they hit their regulars. Now they're wanting to get some new experiences. So I think all those are right on.
And a lot of those are still, Europe is still hot. Prediction number four in this week's Weekly Traveler reads, here's what's not for travel destinations in 2024, Paul. I had Israel, of course, with the war. Mexico I put on there. Jamaica. Both of those are because of security issues. Yep. Spain, Nassau, Bahamas, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, Southern Europe during July and August when it's super hot, okay? and Hawaii, because they're still recovering a lot from that massive fire in Maui. So those are ones that I say we had where what's hot and what's not. This is the what's not.
Yeah, I think those do all align. We've talked a lot about Jamaica and Mexico and the safety challenges, and I think that's those are things that people are starting to recognize more and more. And then obviously world events. Another one that is probably questionable that you don't have on there is going to Asia with what's going on in China and still the recovery from COVID there, but also what's potentially on the horizon with Taiwan. So I think there's another one that probably is going to be a challenge for 2024.
The next item on this week's predictions for 2024 in the travel industry reads, you will need to watch a training video before you get into your next rental car. Paul, if you've ever got into a hybrid rental car, I had one. I didn't know when to gas up, when to charge the electricity. They need to put a QR code on the dashboard so I can do it and have a video that explains, how do you run this car?
It's sad, but it's true. So I think that's a reality of the transition that we're in. And actually, a lot of the rental car companies are going back to having less electric cars just because of that challenge.
Yeah.
You get, especially when they've had limited availability, you get somebody there that they might have a vehicle available, but they don't want that electric vehicle. So I think the rental car companies have changed their efforts at a certain level to go electric just because of the questions that come with that.
Yeah, Hertz kind of got mud on their face because they want a heavy electric.
Big electric.
And nobody wanted to rent those electric cars because if they're going long term, where do I find a charging station?
Yeah.
Because if you're going out in rural America, there aren't a lot of charging stations. The next item on this week's 2024 travel predictions reads, the death of the seat-back TV screens on airplanes will start to reverse in 2024. Paul, 5 years ago, they were getting rid of all the seat-back TVs. And then they came in with new planes, and now they all have seat-back TVs, so they're coming back.
Yeah.
And we're seeing them on most of our flights.
I've noticed on the last couple of flights I've been on now, they're touch screens, so they're very easy to use, and you can actually connect your Bluetooth. So you can use your own headphones now. So I think that is something where that's a simple convenience that they're recognizing people appreciate.
The next 2024 prediction in this week's Weekly Traveler reads, airfares now make up less than 30% of the cost of a business trip. If you look at it and you're going to go on a 3-day business trip, you're going to spend probably a couple $100 for meals. You're going to spend car rental of maybe $300 with all the fees and taxes, and $500 for 3 nights of hotel. And you add to that $400 in airline tickets. That's only about 30% of the cost, or less than. So that used to be 50% of your cost. Yeah. And now hotel costs, meal costs, car rental costs have gone up. So now you can't really measure the cost of a business trip solely on that airline ticket.
Yeah, I think you really have to approach things differently than we have historically, because the rental car, I was just booking one for this weekend, and for 5 days of a rental car, it was almost $500. So, to that, if you're going to certain destinations that the distances aren't too far, Uber and some of those other things are going to be things for consideration. And so I think, when it comes to corporate travel, those are things that within that travel policy need to be looked at differently, because historically the travel managers wanted to know and have controls over where their employees were, and there's some risk factor to that rideshare. But I think for cost savings moving forward, that's something that people are going to want to reanalyze.
The next item on this week's 2024 travel predictions reads, airlines will purchase thousands of new airplanes in 2024 and 2025, Paul, and will replace those smaller regional jets. This is great news for a big guy like you and me.
Amen.
So they're basically replacing those 50-seat regional jets with 200-seat Boeing and Airbuses. And they're doing that economically because it still takes 2 pilots to run a regional jet and 2 pilots to run a large jet. So they basically can control some of their costs and have 150 more people on a flight with same number of pilots, same expense. And they also then don't have to take 4 flights into Chicago O'Hare with 50 people is 200 people versus 1 flight. So they control the congestion at some of these major hubs, and then you and I get the extra baggage space and the seat room on these bigger flights. So that's a big win, and we're talking about thousands of new airplanes coming in this year.
Well, I think what we're seeing, I actually have a friend that's leaving today. He's going to train to go from piloting a Dreamliner 787 to piloting a 777, so the bigger plane. So I think that's what they're doing, is they're taking their pilots, they're expanding their fleets, they're going to make it more comfortable, and hopefully it benefits everybody, because hopefully that excess capacity will then help it so that those prices can be positively impacted for the traveler.
Headline number 9 in this week's Weekly Travel Alert, our 2024 travel prediction reads, "It's about time for better airplane Wi-Fi." Paul, there's nothing that frustrates me more than Wi-Fi. United has the biggest problem, but I try to get on there, do work, get on Wi-Fi, and it's always off.
Yeah.
I pay for it too. Then
Yep.
talk about adding insult to injury. You pay for Wi-Fi and then it's lousy and is off half the time. But with all these new planes, they'll be retrofitted with newer Wi-Fi systems. So
Yeah.
I think that's great news.
When you're doing those long hauls, there's nothing like being able to get some work done or get some catch up,
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's when you're traveling home, say you're coming from Europe, you're traveling with the daylight. So it's tougher to sleep on those flights. If you can get some extra, a couple hours of catching up on those emails, there's a lot of value to that for that $9.99 or whatever you're paying for that Wi-Fi, but it's got to work.
Yeah, it does. I give everybody a little tip. When I'm gone, I pull all my emails into a file I name 1AAAAA. So it's right at the top of my email list. And when I get back, then I go through all those. Oh my gosh, I'll have 800 emails in that file when I get home. The next headline in this week's Weekly Travel Alert, this is our 2024 travel predictions. And number 10 reads, "Forget about a complimentary domestic upgrade unless you are a top elite airline member." Paul, I've gone in and upgrading from coach to first, and once there were 40 people on the upgrade list.
I've seen over 70.
Over 70. Well, you and I are fortunate that we travel so much. We're at the 1K status with United, but even then doesn't guarantee we're going to get upgraded.
I'm traveling tomorrow, and I was looking at the Omaha Denver flights, and there are no seats available. So now that being said, and kind of going back to what we've already talked about, looking at the Denver to LA flights, it is a wide body plane. So it actually has lay flats on it. So I think that'll be another benefit to these additional planes coming into the market. There will be some more larger planes that will have more upgrades available. But if they're ordering the planes now, delivery is not going to be for a while. So don't get too excited for the short term.
The next headline reads, "Airplanes seem full and should be profitable, yet they require 82% of their seats being full to be financially break even," Paul. Now, years ago, when you got to 67% or so, you were breaking even, and above that, you were making money. Here's where I'm really worried about the airlines. They're not going to make money next year. They're going to be full and not making money because their expenses have gone up so much. Their labor costs have gone up by 40%. They've added 30 or 40% more employees, and their ability to raise prices domestically has actually is inelastic, so they can't raise them anymore domestically. So the airlines are in tough shape, and they just can't make money even if they fill the planes to 82%.
I think you've got just the facts that you mentioned there, but we also, with an election year upon us, people are going to have their spend is going to be impacted, whether that be corporate spend or individual spend, just because of what typically happens during an election cycle. So I think you're right; it's going to be a tough year. So hopefully some of these things that they're putting into play will benefit them, but like I said, they're not going to be immediately recognized. So maybe 2025 and beyond, they'll start seeing the positive impact of some of their actions right now.
Boy, this is fun. These are travel predictions for 2024, Paul. And the next one is for corporate travel managers, because what we're seeing, and the headline reads as follows: more companies will allow their travelers to pay $100 or more for a direct flight. And what they're saying is it does cost more to find that nonstop or direct flight versus going Omaha, Chicago, New York with that stop in the middle, but you prevent all the canceled flights, the missed connections, the luggage issue. And people are saying, I'm willing to pay more to not have the hassle and make sure I get there on time.
Your risk versus your reward. So I think that's the reality. You got caught up on this here just in the last month where, you had a maintenance issue that then you misconnected. So then you had an extra night's hotel, extra meals. So $100 really is something that it does make sense at that.
Especially at the corporate level. Yep. And the corporate travel managers are going to, I think, reconsider a lot of that this year and add that to their travel policy. The next item on this week's 2024 travel predictions and the weekly travel alert reads as follows. Governments will add so much taxes to airfares that sometimes the taxes will be more than the airfare. Paul, I looked up a flight from Frankfurt to Dublin, and the fare was $55, and the taxes were $80. Mm-hmm. Can you believe that? You're getting more taxes than the airline charged for the flight. This is crazy.
I think that's one of the things that many people don't understand is the number of taxes that are tied to an airline ticket. As you're paying for each landing that you've got, you're paying for fuel surcharges, you're paying for all these things, and it just adds up. And back, 30 years ago when I was doing accounting here, that's all I looked at every day, and it was amazing. But it's the government's figuring out their way to get their take on all this stuff. That's for sure.
The 14th headline in this week's Weekly Traveler, which is our 2024 travel predictions, reads, "Great news, prepare for a lot fewer travel hiccups in 2024. I think the airlines got their eyes blackened last year with Southwest specifically, went a whole week during Christmas and Thanksgiving area, and they canceled all those flights. And now the airlines figure they've got to have a better product. They got to have one they can count on better. So I sense they're getting organized better, getting more pilots, more staff. And so I just sense there's going to be a lot of the stress taken out of the system this year because they'll at least be staffed better. They'll have bigger planes. They'll be able to have their systems put in place better post-COVID. COVID, they just kind of had to react to get out of for the last 2 years. Now I think I call this a smooth sailing year, or at least I've got my fingers crossed.
I hope you're right. Yeah. I think there's so much that impacts this industry that's beyond control, whether that be the airlines' control, our control. And so it takes one storm, it takes one world event. There's going to be an impact at some level. It would be nice if the airlines pulled their stuff together so that they would be better prepared for that. But I will pray that you're correct, but I won't hold my breath on this one.
Well, you're a wise man because you look at history, and history tells us a lot.
I've sat on an airplane for 6 hours straight before. That's I don't think that will get to the point that will never happen again.
The last item, number 15 on this week's Weekly Traveler, which is our 2024 travel predictions, Paul, reads, and this is a fun one. It will be cheaper to cruise than to stay in an assisted living facility. If you think about it, you can get a cruise as low as like $75 a day, and an assisted living runs $100 or $200 a day. And they both include your food. A cruise even has a doctor.
Entertainment.
And has entertainment every night. So why don't we just set up a Royal Caribbean assisted living? What do you say?
Sometimes when you get on a cruise ship, it does feel like it's an assisted living.
You're right. Certain cruises do.
But no, I think that's a great point, and it's one of those things that many people they set and wait until they're retired, and that's probably why a lot of those cruises feel like that's what they are. But do it earlier. I think that would be my challenge to people in 2024 is don't wait until you're in that situation. Go out and live life now and enjoy those experiences and make those memories and make new friendships and all those things. We were blessed to each get some time in Italy with people that weren't close friends prior. And I think we came back with new close friends that had been and great things. And that's what travel can do. And so as I would look at 2024 and people would ask me what to do, I'd say, you know what? Make that experience. Make it a priority to do something this year that you want to do. It's on your bucket list, but until now, you haven't committed to doing it. So make 2024 that year of a new experience and a new destination.
The year of action and the year of gusto. How about that? That's this week's edition of the Weekly Traveler. This is our 2024 travel prediction program. We've got 4 programs. We've got 60 travel predictions for 2024. 70% of those normally come true, and 30%, Paul, are the dogs, and you'll have to pick those out. So join us next week. It should be a lot of fun.
Please like, subscribe, share, and add any comments of future topics you'd like us to hit on. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.